Hi, welcome to Meerkat Poke. This is just the audio version of voicemails and music and the Trendsetters. Like voicemails and songs, it's a well-known common phenomenon that happens in the genres of music that I listen to. R&B, rap, hip hop. It's used a lot, whether it's voicemails or audio recordings. Some of the songs have audio snippets that are grainy and kind of sound authentic. All this started because I had tried to explain to a friend why you don't leave voicemails on people's phones, because you never know who in your friend group creates music or is an upcoming rapper and is gonna add you to the end of their song or the beginning of their song. And this friend looked at me blankly just because in the type of music that they listen to, like, it's not a common phenomenon. But to me, it's such a common phenomenon that it has become almost a meme. As a joke, I started a playlist of just songs that I knew that had either a voicemail or audio recording, and the list grew a lot. And it wasn't until it was like maybe up to 20 songs that I was like, oh, like maybe I should look more into this, like, why is this such a common phenomenon in this genre of music, or is this the only genre of music that has this boom of voicemails and audio recordings added to their songs? And low-key, like, the initial question that I wanted to answer is, like, what is the first song that included a voicemail? I don't think I've answered that question, but with this large collection of songs, I think I was able to, like, kind of answer the question of, like, who started this trend, or at least start that conversation. So I started making the playlist. The way I categorized a voicemail was by saying, oh, like, does a voicemail or audio recording have the grainy or authentic essence of a voicemail or a phone call? And in this project, I wanted to look for trends in all these songs, to see if, like, there was a decade where this started, or like was there like a certain year where there was like a boom of voicemails and audio recordings. So by looking at the different songs, I kind of found that, like, primarily, yes, like hip hop, rap, and R&B usually tend to have the most voicemails and audio recordings. Based on the collections of songs, Dr. Dre, in conjunction with NWA, started this trend during the 90s, but like I also saw that there was like a boom in voicemails during the 2010s, where Drake and Kendrick Lamar kind of took the ball and just exploded this voicemail trend. I have yet to find what the oldest and first song was that first used a voicemail, but with this compilation of 131 songs and counting, I think it's a good start to have this conversation on how iconic the voicemail has become in the hip hop, rap, and R&B community. I started listening to music and gradually adding to a Spotify playlist. I would just collect it and started taking it more seriously when I started a music blog, even though it's been a year since I posted in there and I'm paying for this shit, so I'm like, fuck it. Anyways, I got off track. So I collected the songs, but I don't have a data background, so I ended up asking one of my data science savvy friends, and he suggested try to get at least 130 just so you have like a big data set. And I ended up collecting 136 songs. Not all of them are voicemails though. Like, I do want to preface that, like, I did end up going back and I'm like, oh, because a lot of them were more like voice memos because they're contemporary songs and like nobody really uses voicemail anymore. Most people are using voice memos. So I try to categorize it into what sounded like a voicemail and what sounded like an audio recording, because some of them are audio recordings. And I realized that only 90 of the songs had the grainy, vulnerable, and conversational quality that I would characterize as a voicemail. The rest of the songs came across as either audio, video, or phone call recordings. And it's not really a voicemail. Like, it's more like a phone call. So this data collection process was not perfect because it is an ongoing project, and I do want to make a part 2 to this when I have more feedback and more data, just because I've been doing this for a year and like I just need to put it out there. Like, it's been holding me hostage, and I want to talk about other stuff. I took those Spotify songs, right? And I created a spreadsheet, and I ended up recording the artist, the song name, the release date, the genre of music, the voicemail purpose, voicemail placement, length of song, and music label. I ended up looking up if somebody else had ever talked about this, and that's when I saw that there was a Pitchfork article that was called A Guide to Voicemails in Hip Hop by Sheldon Pierce. And in this article, he categorized voicemails as like having different purposes in the song, kind of like a literary purpose. Like, it has, so like it was either, the way he categorized it was like either a voicemail has either a narrative building purpose, a myth building purpose, a family business purpose, a backstory, warning shots, or it's there for remembrance. And when I read this article, I thought it was like a lot of insight, but like I wanted to simplify it because it was a lot of categories. So I was like, okay, I think I can like combine some of the categories. So, because they were a little similar. So I chose to condense the 6 categories into 3. So I condensed narrative building, stayed by itself. Family business, backstories, and remembrance were all condensed to remembrance. And I chose to do this because a lot of remembrance category had to do with like family, like past ones, ex-lovers, like I'll call back to the time of another song. Like, it's kind of like a backstory, like a callback to another time. I just left it as remembrance just because that's a much broader category. And then myth building and warning shots were combined into myth building, just because like if you're giving warning shots to someone, I don't know, like in songs, I'm thinking of like that one Tupac song that it's like get money, like that one, where he was basically like, I'm gonna get you,
Two, all you motherfuckers, fuck you too. All of y'all motherfuckers, fuck you, die slow, motherfucker. My fofo make sure all y'all kids don't grow. You motherfuckers can't be us or see us.
He said it in a better way. I don't know how to, but I feel like that's part of myth building, because like that's still like giving warning shots to somebody is kind of like building that ego, that whole brand, that personality that like that comes with the rapper or artist. So I just left it as myth building. So I ended up condensing those categories into narrative, remembrance, and myth building. There was another article that I found that kind of helped me also add to this spreadsheet, just because all this spreadsheet, when I first started with the spreadsheet, it was just songs that I knew, and most of the songs are still songs that I knew, but I knew that most of the genre of music that I listen to is R&B and hip-hop and rap. Like, that's not good enough data. Like, that's gonna bias the data. So I was like, okay, let me try to find resources to find different genres of music that I don't normally listen to, and find if there's other songs of other genres that have voicemails that I may not know of. So I ended up using the article that I just mentioned, A Guide to Voicemails in Hip Hop. And there was another article that's called The Most Iconic Use of Voicemails in Hit Songs by Megan Fredette. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. And from another website called Song Facts. So I use this to increase my diversity of song genres in my data set. But like, as I was going through the songs, I did see that some of the songs that were added to these lists, to me, it didn't sound like voicemails. Like, there was a song called Hello, This Is Joni by Paul Evans. The whole song is the girl singing a voicemail, but it didn't have the quality that I would associate from a voicemail. Like, it was kind of like it was a recorded song as a voicemail. Another example that I just chose not to include was Stand by Eminem, just because I felt like the audio lacked rawness. So it wasn't like the content itself was supposed to be written like a voicemail or a letter to Eminem, but it wasn't a voicemail. Like, it's not like it would hit different if, like, you know, you actually heard the recording of somebody leaving like some bad crazy voicemail, like, but it just wasn't that. Like, it was like he was rapping what a fan had written to him, some crazy stuff. And I thought it just lacked the rawness and like just the authenticity of it. So yeah, I chose to not include those songs. So some of the songs that were on those lists, I just chose not to include them just because I felt like they weren't voicemails. It just lacks the intimateness. I'm gonna link my Spotify playlist just so you guys can check it out, like all the songs I included. And also I'm gonna include, just in case you guys do want to have access to this data, like, and you want to go do your own project, I like open source things, so like if you want to use that, that's also, I'm also gonna post that just so everybody can use the data, and also like you can give me feedback. I want to be as transparent as possible. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So when creating this spreadsheet, I started to see patterns. I saw that a lot of, like as I said before, a lot of the artists that use voicemails were part of hip hop and rap and R&B and soul genre, which wasn't surprising to me because that's kind of how I started the project. Like, and it is like kind of like a running joke or like a running meme where it's like, ha ha ha, don't leave a voicemail to a producer because you'll never know, you might end up in a song. I was still curious, like, who are the people that started this trend and how did it become commonplace? I'm looking through my notes as I'm speaking. That's why I'm looking to the side, because part of it is like I'm reading, but also like trying to speak off the top of my head. So first, let me give you some history. So voicemails were created in the late 1970s by Gordon Matthews, and this was created because corporations wanted voicemails so employees could leave each other messages without ringing the phone. And also, like, okay, 1970s, we didn't have email back then, okay? We didn't have Teams. We didn't have, what's it called? What do other people use? Slack? I don't know, like... So there was no way to message each other, so people would leave voicemails, which is funny to think about now. Wow, they didn't have audio recordings back then. Also, in the early days, like, answering machines would be like voicemails to us, but the main difference is, like, answering machine, it was basically stored on a server, because like answering machines were attached to landlines and didn't have caller ID. But this all changed in 1988. I was reading this article that was called "A Small Convenience That Changed Everything: History of the Voicemail." It's an article by Rupendra Brahambat. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And like there was a quote that said, initially phone companies weren't allowed to provide voicemail service on their devices, but a ruling in 1988 by Judge Harold H. Green revoked this restriction. Greg Carr and Scott Jones, founders of the Boston Technology Company, saw this court decision as a market opportunity, and in 1988, they launched and sold their first voicemail service to telecom companies. So basically, after this ruling, voicemails were allowed, and you didn't need to have an answering machine or like voicemails connected to servers. It just answering machines became obsolete and voicemails became much more popular. So yeah, that's how like it became popular between around the 1980s and the 1990s, but eventually they started the decline around 2012. Probably declined like once text messages and like iPhones started becoming more popular. That's my theory, but I don't know. So when I was looking at the data, I wanted to find, I don't think I can claim that I found the oldest song, but I gathered the 5 oldest songs that I found. One was Mi Corazón Lloró, which is a song in Spanish, and I just added it because this is just a childhood song that I've known. Slow Ride, which was suggested to me by somebody on Twitter. Forgot their username. I'm probably gonna add it somewhere in the video. All the Love, Message to BA, Interlude, which like this one I found, I think this one I found on one of the articles that I mentioned above. And Disgustipated, this one I found because of that website that I looked up, Song Facts. That's how I found Disgustipated. Slow Ride and Mi Corazón Lloró, they have phone call audio. So it's not really a voicemail, but they are pretty old. Disgustipated was in 1993. Mi Corazón Lloró was released in 1975. I can't find the actual date just because it's vinyl, and vinyl has different releases. I should explain this further, but I also don't really understand. I just remember a friend of a friend telling me, like, yeah, it's actually really hard to find release dates on vinyls just because there was usually multiple releases when it came to vinyl. And then Slow Ride was released in 1991. And these are phone call audios. The first song with a voicemail is actually All the Love by Kate Bush and Message to BA. Both songs utilized answering machines to play voicemails we hear throughout the song. So, yeah, and you can kind of tell because, okay, Message to BA was released in 1991, All of the Love was released in 1982, so, like, around this time, that's when answering machines were more popular, and, like, we hadn't reached that decision, that decision that I mentioned, with the court, 1988. That's when they made that decision. Okay, so back to the data. From 1975 to the 2000s, there were some voicemails, like, in songs, but it wasn't, like, well, I don't want to say it wasn't that common. Based on my data set, like, it never went past 4. However, it kind of looks like an exponential trend that happened after the 2010s that I want to show, because like that's when the songs just ended up increasing a lot. So I began to graph voicemails occurrences by year, and yeah, so I saw that it just shot up after 2010, and I made a list of artists in my spreadsheet that like come up the most with voicemails, and the artists that I saw the most were Baby Keem, Drake, Isaiah Rashad, Kendrick Lamar, SZA, and Warner Meadows. And before I even started this data set, I kind of like had noticed that like a lot of the TDE artists had voicemails in their songs. So maybe like like, my data set might be biased just because I listen to a lot of TDE artists. Like, I won't deny that. It might be biased. But that's just what I'm seeing with what I have. I'm just using what I have. Okay, anyways. So, yeah, so the most prominent artists that I saw were those. With Kendrick Lamar having the most voicemails. So, like, at some point, SZA, Isaiah Rashad were all involved with TDE and Top Dog Entertainment. So, and it's also funny that Baby Keem is Kendrick's cousin. So, like, they all have ties to Kendrick. So, that's when I started to see the pattern where I was just like, why are all these people that know Kendrick also using a lot of voicemails and audio? And then I started thinking, so all of this started booming after 2010. When did Kendrick's album come out? Not his first album, but like the first major album that kind of put him in the spotlight. And I was like, Good Kid, Mad City. Good Kid, Mad City was released under Dr. Dre's label, Aftermath. So, like, I started making, like, connections, like, cute to, like, Charlie, the guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, like, started connecting dots. Like, these people know each other. These people have made music together. So, Good Kid, Mad City was released through Dr. Dre's label Aftermath. So I kept going back and forth, and I also noticed that Snoop Dogg and Eminem also had use of voicemails. And it kept going further to NWA, who was one of the oldest songs that I mentioned that also had a voicemail. Dr. Dre was part of NWA, and he didn't leave NWA until 1992, meaning that he must have had influence when the song Message to BA Interlude was released. So all these artists have collaborated. Coincidence? I think not. I just ended up going in this fucking rabbit hole where I was just like trying to play detective, and all this led me to believe that Dr. Dre and NWA basically created the blueprint for adding voicemails to songs. And this seemed to hold up since Snoop Dogg and Eminem had early tracks of voicemails and also had close ties to Dr. Dre. However, as mentioned, this trend didn't explode until the 2010s. And what kind of albums were released in 2010s? I think I already said this. Enter Good Kid, Mad City, and Take Care, Drake's album. These are iconic albums that forever popularized the art of voicemails. Wait a minute. How does Drake even fit into this theory? Because have Drake and Dr. Dre made music together? Like, also, like, Drake's from Toronto. Like, he has his own label. He is not part of Dr. Dre's label. So how does he fit into this theory? Yeah, I don't have the answer to that question. And like, I'll be honest, I booed Drake at Camp Flogwa 2019. Like, I don't care for Drake's new music, to be honest, but like, you can't deny that, like, he has a chokehold on. He has a lot of fans, and he has a lot of influence, like, whether you like it or you're not, or not. And in my case, I don't like it, but no, but I like it. Okay, don't get me wrong, I really like his old shit. Marvin's Room, my song. Like, you can't deny the iconic Marvin's Room, like, or the astounding influence that Drake has had over pop culture for the last few years and, like, for the last decade. This man keeps putting out mediocre songs. I may not like them, but, like, he's still topping charts. But as I was saying, so Drake released Take Care on November 15, 2011, and Kendrick released Good Kid, Mad City October 12, 2012. On Kendrick's albums, we have 9 out of 17 songs, or around 53% of the songs, that end up having voicemails or audio recordings. And so I was like, could it be that Dr. Dre was the one that influenced Kendrick, and then Kendrick was able to influence voicemails on his fellow counterparts at TDE? This is just my mini conspiracy, just because, yeah, I'm just speculating, just because I'm assuming that my data is correct. But, like, at the same time, like, I did say, disclaimer, like, this is probably biased data, just because most of the songs are songs that I listen to. Like, yeah, like, I asked people on Twitter, like, please tell me, like, other songs that have voicemails, and, like, I asked my friends who, like, listen to other genres, but at the same time, like, I need more feedback. Hence why I'm making this video. I need more feedback, and if you know any songs that are older than that, if you're, like, a true hip-hop head, which I am not. I did not grow up listening to hip-hop until, like, maybe in high school. Yeah, so honestly, I want to keep collecting older music past the 1990s, just because I still haven't answered that question of, like, which is the oldest song that started this? What was the first song that included a voicemail? And also, like, how do you find release dates on vinyls? Just because that was kind of hard, and I still haven't answered that question. And the internet was not prevalent back then, so, like, you don't have, like, a set date. So that's the end of the video. Please offer criticisms, comment with your criticism, or if you have suggestions on where to look up other songs, or if you know a song that should be added into the playlist, let me know. Just because I'm not a statistician. Also, like, if you have stuff to do better data analysis, just because the data that I looked at was pretty basic. I just, like, graphed pretty graphs. Yeah, just to make the data stronger. Thank you. Have a good day. And I hope you listen to good music.